You guys can hear me? Lovely. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, good people. Thanks for joining. Great vibe at this event. This event is growing bigger and bigger every day. And RevTech team, congratulations. I see some more people coming. I'll use this time to call my panelist, Sanjay, Charlotte. Welcome. Thank you everybody for joining. We'll start with a quiz. The history lessons for insurance. We are at changing landscape of insurance. Does anybody know where the... You guys can hear me good? I can be louder. This is a small room. So we're going to start with the quiz. Anybody knows where was the first insurance company started in US? Good try. So the first insurance company started in our neighborhood, Charleston, South Carolina, 1703. If we trace back the history of insurance, we can go to medieval times, and we would see how behavior of humans in society started the need for insurance. So medieval times, pirates, because of pirates, Chinese traders started insurance, and they would get the money in advance in case something happens, and then they'll go back and they give the money back. So, but modern insurance foundation was laid down when the Great Fire of London happened. That's when modern insurance format was laid down. Paper trail started, and the first insurance was written on a piece of paper. With that, tough questions coming your way, Charlotte. I asked ChatGPT today morning, how do I introduce my panelist? The response was hilarious. Ask the panelists to introduce themselves, they would do a better job than you. So with that, Charlotte, introduce yourself. What do you do in insurance? That's important. We want some takeaways for the audience today. And give your final remarks on the changing landscape of insurance. Is it really changing, Charlotte?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Charlotte Creech. By day, I am a corporate innovation leader at USAA based in San Antonio, Texas. But in heart and in spirit, I'm really an entrepreneur. So I've had a balanced career. About half of my career has been spent in insurance, on the claims experience, and now in innovation. And then I also deviated from traditional corporate roles and had a tech startup of my own that was serving the military veteran community. And then I also did a short 3 years as a leader of a nonprofit called Patriot Boot Camp, which was part of the Techstars Accelerator and helped military veterans and spouses start scalable tech ventures as well. So good mix of corporate innovation, the innovation and entrepreneurial background as well. And that's a little bit about me.
I would say good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? I was thinking it's afternoon though. I'm Sanjay Rai, and I lead middle and large commercial insurance IT side for Hartford. I'm based in Charlotte. I used to work at AIG prior to this, and prior to that I have a banking experience, part of KeyBank, a bunch of other InsurTech and innovation, part of some of those practices that I've led in the past. But most recently, and unlike Charlotte, for me, my job is to take the innovation and bring it to the actual people like ourselves and in general market. A little bit about myself. Locally, I'm pretty much, very much engaged in the community, do a lot of volunteer work, specifically in the deprived area in Charlotte. So I'm a big proponent of that. And also, women in technology is the area that I'm very passionate about. I have a daughter, and I'm sure that most of you have as well. So those are the few areas that I lead in addition to what I do for Hartford. Today, I'm not going to talk about Hartford. It's going to be mostly about the insurance and my experience in that space. Just a disclaimer.
Lovely. So Charlotte, you do the exciting work, and Sanjay, you do boring job.
Definitely.
But we have to partner to get the job done, right?
So let's start with you, Charlotte. So from medieval times to the fire in London, from paper to paperless insurance, your remarks. Is it changing the landscape of insurance?
Oh, for sure. Consumer trends are changing. Technology is advancing rapidly, and so by nature of those things alone, insurance has to change and is changing as well. And we can see that across a variety of dimensions. I think just starting with what we insure is changing, and that has a downstream effect on all of the other components of underwriting, pricing, and certainly on customer expectations are changing as well. And so that also helps drive where the technology needs to go, where the product innovation needs to go, and really how we deliver experiences within claims and insurance in general.
Sanjay?
Absolutely. I think the insurance in last, I would say, 10 years, if you look back, how the consumer behavior has changed, right? As we see the demographic of the population is changing, whether you talk about Gen Z, Gen X, our great generation, the behavior of consumer has changed, and so does demographic. And therefore, we have to adapt to those behaviors, and tech is a catalyst for us to accelerate how the insurance is delivered to the market. Very simple example I'll give you. We all used to Amazon now, deliver that stuff at our home, right? I mean, current generation expect that from insurers, especially whether you are insurtech person or traditional carrier or MGA or broker. Customer expects everything on their hand. So I think it just, in my opinion, tech is a catalyst, while actual demographic is leading the insurance industry as to where it needs to be.
Thank you. I see when you made a comment about Gen Zs, I see some Gen Zs in the audience. They were like, what is that? What is insurance? Charlotte, fears, tears, and years teach us a lot. Pandemic, financial crisis, has that taught a lot to the carriers, and they started to transform? I've been seeing and hearing about digital transformation in insurance, and now we're talking about generative AI. Your thoughts on how technology has forced you, or pandemic probably?
Yeah, this is a really fun topic. This is going to be shocking to everybody, but insurance is really slow to change. And so a lot of times, we're a risk-averse industry, and so many times we don't change because of inspiration or other things. It's really a change out of necessity. We wait until we absolutely are forced to have to change something about our business. And so I think the pandemic really speaks to that. When we overnight, the economy shut down, the world shut down, we all had to find new ways of working. An example of that in my world is on virtual inspections. Suddenly we found that we could not send a field inspector or a claims adjuster to the member's home to inspect the damage from their property loss. And so we had to leverage digital tools like video-enabled inspection, AR, VR, et cetera. And so for me as an innovator within the insurance industry, this was an exciting inflection point and a real catalyst in finally getting the adoption and buy-in and the quick movement to execute on some of those strategic ideas and disruptive technologies that before the industry may have taken a seat back and said, well, prove to me that it works before I implement it. So I think that certainly speaks to what is happening right now, and I see good indicators that because we now have, we've had more of a chance to embrace technology, embrace process innovation, that some of those trends will continue. So we'll continue to see a rapidly accelerating pace of change.
I'll have to ask you a question outside the script now. You said you couldn't send the inspectors to people's houses to large commercial buildings. What was the reaction when you had to say you'll have to do it on a video now? And what did you use any tool? I have to ask this question.
Yes, so we did partner with a service provider that already had a video-enabled solution that married nicely with our core infrastructure. What I always find most interesting is our customer feedback. At USAA, we're membership, so we refer to them as our members. And I think a lot of times there's fear or concern, or the pushback that I will get is to say, our members don't want that. Our members don't want you to, make them use a digital tool. They won't want to download an app or have you track their data. But what the survey actually revealed was that our members just want a seamless and helpful experience. And so it's all in how you deliver that experience. They don't really care whether somebody's showing up at their house or whether it's a digital tool, as long as it's easy, effortless, intuitive, provides a guided experience. And so we've seen great adoption and great results with that, and really have disproven that members are adverse to using digital tools.
Thank you. Sanjay, with your wide experiences with working with few carriers and an global experience with a very large insurer carrier, how was the pace of change in other regions than in the US? And if you can highlight both aspects for the audience, the impact of pandemic and the financial crisis.
Absolutely, thank you. Charlotte, I couldn't agree with you more on your comments on how the rapidly consumer behavior, what they expected, changed. Let me take back a little bit of my experience during the pandemic. I mean, when pandemic happened, we all adapted working from home, right? So if you look at how the carriers and insurers are seeing, this led the adoption of the digital trends faster, specifically in insurance industry, specifically for carriers, as well as InsurTech moving into the carriers space, mostly catering to a specialized way. So pandemic literally was the catalyst for the digital adoption, specifically in the insurance industry. It also created problems as well for the carriers. And that connotation, I would give one example on that. The carriers, now they have to have a fear of those, specifically in digital space, whether it's Amazon getting into the insurance space. Now you can imagine insurance industry, how they will fear about the data that they leverage today. So that digital adoption, while this is accelerated, it has kept and it has created what I call it a catalyst or push for its carriers to start thinking, getting out of their shell, looking at their infrastructure, how they are today, building and modernizing that, and adapting to the InsurTech area or mindset. So those are the two things I do see insurance industry has moved into that. From financial crisis perspective, there's two things that happen in insurance. Now, insurers have a fear of having the excess capital outside of the insurance industry, bringing and pouring inside the insurance industry, therefore creating InsurTechs or third-party funding mechanism through which they are moving into the MGA space or creating another catalyst through the broker channel. I think those are the two impacts I see on both sides, pandemic as well as on the financial crisis side.
Thank you. You answered part of my next question already, so I'll have to come up with something new. So what is the threat? So the change is happening, finance is getting invisible, going behind the curtain, insurance, banking, everything. What's the threat for you? Is it the InsurTech who's driving the change, who's leading the industry, coming up with innovative products for the Gen Zs? Or is it the big tech that you're more worried about? Who is driving the change? Who's the biggest threat? Charlotte, we can start with you.
Yeah, great question. I'd say both, well, I wouldn't say they're a threat. I'd say both are having impact on the future of the industry and the market and how we do what we do. From my perspective, you know, the tech is advancing far more rapidly than the insurance industry can keep up. So as a large carrier, our real threat is the risk. We can't just go and implement generative AI today because there aren't even laws, rules, and regulations. Like, our government hasn't even contemplated yet how they are going to regulate this in market. And we don't want to do something and then, you know, essentially be sued for it later. So we have to be really prudent and careful in how we evaluate risk. So to me, that is truly the difficulty in kind of maximizing the opportunity while also being conscious and prudent for our members about the level of risk that we're taking on. But as far as the insurtechs, you know, I think there's a great opportunity for partnership. They certainly have the ability to be more nimble and to adopt technology and really set the pace of the industry. But what the carriers have are the connection points to the customers. And we've got 100 years of experience, in the Hartford's case, 200 plus years of experience delivering value to our customers, providing insurance products. And so truly the answer to this is a symbiotic partnership and relationship of leveraging our background in delivering the process and connecting with the customer to service their needs, while also partnering with the insurtech and the technology in the industry to deliver the cutting edge experience and kind of take us into the future.
Thank you. Sanjay?
Absolutely. I think both are, I would say, that catalyst, tech as well as insurtechs. If you look at that pre-pandemic, Lemonades of the world that came in the world, right, threatening traditional carriers. But now you see, I see as a insurtech as a partner, or not as a threat, but more for opportunity to collaborate.
Yep.
To push the insurance industry into the tech age and leverage more and more that way. Rather than being a threat, it's more of a partner, just like brokers, right? We have brokers, we have MGAs, we have a traditional insurer, direct-to-consumer market. There's a fifth element into that is insurtechs. We are highly specialized into certain areas, right? And I think that's where that the insurtech and techs are helping. But let me digress a little bit. They're not the only two things. The actual change catalyst is the consumer behavior, is what leading us to what I see is technology adoption and insurtech enablement is the two things in addition to the tech and insurtechs.
Thank you. I have a list of questions. So many questions from the audience. Looks like you guys really have some insightful information here. Before that, no conference in today's world is ending without a talk about generative AI. And part of it, you both alluded towards leveraging the trends in the technology. So tell us, okay, let's do one thing. Let's make it, can you list down 5 or 3 top technologies that you are leveraging in the insurance space to give seamless experiences to your customers, and cannot be common, so I need 6, 3 from you and 3 from you.
I don't know, this is a pretty challenging one. I'll say, for us, connected data is a huge theme, so telematics, IoT, sensors across both auto and property are really critical. So I'd say that would be one of just encompassing telematics and IoT. I'm really excited about construction, 3D printed construction, so additive manufacturing. That's it's growing. It's been around for a while, but we're finally starting to see that get applied to the insurance industry. If you're not yet following a company in Austin, Texas called Icon, look them up. They are literally, they're working with a government contract to print 3D printed structures on the moon and for Mars. So really, really far out stuff. Why we care about that today is it's a brand new category. Think about a 3D printed home for residential use. How do we underwrite the risk to be able to properly insure that type of structure? It's a new category all to its own, and so I think that is really exciting and something that I bought my kids a 3D printer, but really it's for me. And I've been having fun playing around with that at home. The easy one is AI in general, and generative AI certainly is getting all of the attention in the market right now. So I'll go with those three.
Perfect. Sanjay, you cannot use AI.
Yep, I mean, Charlotte used up all the new areas, but a couple of things I wanted to pivot upon. If you look at the traditional insurance estate, all the carriers that you see, whether it's Chubbs of the world, AIG, Hartford, State Farm, all those our insurance carriers. One of the thing is they're really struggling with their technology debt, specifically their traditional infrastructure where they cannot move things faster. So one of the catalysts, I would say, is the actual modernizing their architecture. Being a cloud native is the first step to leveraging, whether it's generative AI or whether you are competing with insurtechs or even leveraging the data. And I would say the second percentage, which you earlier talked about, is connected data. Mm-hmm. The only thing is today is differentiating insurers, traditional insurers and insurtechs or new technology, is these insurance companies, carriers has loads of data about people. And that is the asset they need to utilize. So three things I touched upon: modernizing your architecture, looking at the data and leveraging it at best, and the third one is more of to utilize that. You got to get into that the new innovation space.
Generative AI wins everything else that you said, doesn't? My next question was really boring, and I see a question from Ronald here. Ronald, if you're in the room. Amazing question, and I'm gonna ask you, Sanjay, this question. It says, tech is enhancing user experience. Very interesting question. What is tech doing to reduce risk? Sanjay, can you take a shot at it?
Absolutely, absolutely. So there is one thing I want to touch upon, is specifically in the earlier when Charlotte touched upon we are heavily regulated industry. So as we take the insurance into the next generation, everyone is using the data, the personalized data, and traditionally that is one of the barriers for insurers to leverage to help customer, is how can we leverage the data in a regulated way. So providing security of the data that customer is sharing with the insurance industry. How are we managing through tech? Is the best way you can do it is various technology that we are leveraging currently. For example, it still haven't been adopted fully yet, but blockchain. In the long run, we do see a very good use case for blockchain in future to secure the PII data, right? Be able to comply with the local regulations. At the same time, provide the value the customers need. So that's one technology that I would see that's going to help us in long run. And the second is, I think, definitely generative AI. We haven't opened up a potential yet, how much is going to help us. But I'm sure that there will be application of those. I know something that I cannot talk here, but there are already carriers are leveraging generative AI to do certain experiment, and it's coming and coming in fast. Probably within this year, we will see some of those changes coming from carriers and moving into that regular mainstream tech adoption.
Love that. I love an insurer talking about blockchain. I love it. Exciting. Charlotte, what do you think is the insurance industry doing about the risk?
I think that, tell me if I'm wrong, but the question was, how is technology reducing risk? So I'll take a different approach. I mean, Sanjay did a great job talking about the technology itself. I'm going to talk a little bit more about like how we use it and the customer experience. So in our claims organization, the biggest risk is not having the right facts of the loss, because when we go to adjudicate the claim and actually arrive at the right amount to pay out on it, we need to make sure that the data is accurate. And so that's really why this strategic theme of connected data is so critical. And again, just to crystallize it a little bit more and help you think through how this can be applied, think about you're driving on the road, you're in your personal vehicle, you're in an accident, hopefully you're not severely injured, but maybe you are, maybe you have your kids in the car. It is a chaotic moment, and your brain is thinking about survival. It's not thinking about the first notice of loss that you need to go home and file. And so think about then what happens if, 3 days later, you're feeling better, you've taken care of the immediate things, and you finally now need to go file this claim. And the insurance adjuster asks you, well, how fast were you traveling? And was it a 2-lane road? And what was the prevalent speed of the traffic that day? And what was the weather that day? And all of these details that at the time, to be able to recount that manually is really challenging. Not to mention from an experience standpoint, nobody wants to relive the worst moment of your day, week, year. So think about the power of having accurate data that is all sensor-based and much more factual than the human memory. And so really that empowers our customers and all of us as individuals to be able to streamline the process, hopefully not have to relive that moment and recount everything manually, and ultimately the power of that data enables data-driven investigations and like a source of truth for a factual and fair settlement outcome.
Totally. A lot of can come from in that scenario, from Google Maps satellite view, 2-lane, 3-lane location. You're definitely hitting on the right points about the accuracy of data in such scenarios. This audience has been lovely. There's a great vibe. These questions are amazing. And somebody is asking a question about how do you stay proactive about changing customer behavior. It's all about how insurance or any financial product is getting sold and purchased, right? It's about behavior. You see EVs, Gen Zs don't want to buy home insurance. They do not want to buy life insurance. They use the scooters around the city here. How do you keep yourself proactive about such behaviors, Charlotte?
Well, this is where the entrepreneur in me comes out. You have to talk to your customers and you have to understand what their needs are, because at the end of the day, my opinion on what my strategy should be doesn't matter if it doesn't resonate with the needs of the user. So we employ human-centered design as a very important design principle at USAA. I'm sure that's pretty common across the industry, and we have active touch points with our members, our customers. We survey them regularly, not just after we've launched a new product or service to get their feedback, but even before. We have a program with our members, those that are more, we basically ask them to raise their hand if they want to be part of designing future products. And so we will have focus groups with them to say, if we were to do X, how would you respond to it? And what would you need? What would you like? So certainly keeping in touch with our members first is really critical to helping us understand how to anticipate and serve their needs. But I'd say coming to conferences like this is just as important, because we can't come up with ideas in our own silo. We need to remove those blinders and have conversations and collision points with others that are not in our industry, or maybe are in our industry but looking at it from a different lens. And so it's all about human connection with your peers, with entrepreneurs, with service providers, with legacy carriers, and then certainly the connection point with the end user.
Just adding to
I'm going to make it tough for you.
I'm going to just quickly add to Charlotte's points. I think definitely what you just said is pretty traditionally being used in whether it's traditional carriers or in insurtechs. But the lens that personally I begin to see when I was at previous company, AIG. Those who are here, just want to make sure. We started looking to other industry, how they are servicing the customer, Gen Zs, Gen X, right? And very classic example of whether you look at Home Depot, how their experience has been for customer, or look at Amazon of the world, how they provide the services to the door. Can we learn from them and implement some of those customer experiences or help customer? At the end of the day, they all want everything in their hand in the new generation. Who will be the one who will be leading the commercial space or all the next generation in 10 years, 20 years from now? So we need to start adapting that from them by learning from other companies as well. So just wanted to add.
Charlotte, the live feed on questions. It's a great example about the 3D printing house making example. Are there any other insurance product is one of the questions, and hold on, I have to ask two. And Igor, he's asking a question about the gaps. I remember our conversation out before this session, we were talking about processes, partnering with external partners. So what are those challenges? Short answers from both of you. Sanjay, I'm going to start with you first.
Just you're talking about the process perspective, how the adoption is from tech perspective?
What are the problems when you have to actively participate with innovators in the external market?
I don't think that technology is a problem. Technology is like, we can deliver that in tomorrow, day after, right? It's how you take that implement in your organization, and it's unique for each organization. The challenge is when we look at the processes in our organizations and how we can adapt them quickly, the change management aspect of it. That is the longest pole for all the traditional carriers, just because that's what they have been doing in the past, and customers are used to it. They don't want to change that, push that customer to change their behavior, or per se internally, whether it's operations, actuaries, or underwriters, or anyone in the operation space. So I think I would say that's particular one is, I would say, highlight that as a process change, and adoption of it is the biggest challenge for us.
Charlotte, 3D printers and what more?
Sorry, say it again.
The question about it was a compliment that 3D printing house is a great example. What are other products that insurers are thinking for future that they could be insured?
Well, I think an easy answer is all types of digital assets and cyber liability, cybersecurity. That's a huge trend of the future. You know, how do you value an asset whose market rate fluctuates on a daily basis, or even hour to hour, minute to minute? So I don't. I think a lot of people are thinking about this challenge. I haven't seen the solutions at scale hit the market yet, but to me, that's a really interesting area for new product development and new ways of servicing through enablement with blockchain and Web3 technology.
Yes, so I want to add to, you asked about the product side, right? So if you look at that, now we're in metaverse world. So some of the insurtechs have started thinking about how we can insure the house in the metaverse. Mm-hmm. I think those are the things that's interesting concept, but I think you can think about we are getting into the VR, 3D worlds, right? So I think as an insurance industry, we need to start thinking about how that's going to work out for us in future. So I see that that's very far in the future, but again, it could happen tomorrow. We didn't know about 9 months ago. We didn't know about ChatGPT or generative AI, right? Not much traction, but look at this now. Everybody is reacting to it. So I think that's, we have to adapt and inspect and adapt the industry.
If I may, Pradeep, I want to kind of tie two themes together here with additive manufacturing. We talked about the home example, but there's also application on the auto side as well. We can 3D print auto parts today. That's not a technological barrier. But then when you think about the process, so the tech is able to do that right now and do it with very high fidelity. And oh, by the way, it's on-demand printing. So we no longer have to wait for the supply chain to catch up and be able to deliver something on a truck to get to us. But it's not just always about the tech, it's about the process. And what gets really complicated, and I think where some entrepreneurs and service providers maybe fall short is they only focus on the tech and they don't take the time to understand all the business process underneath that is required to overcome in order to work with a carrier. And so an example of that is like the embedded relationship with policy contracts and OEM parts. Most large insurers for personal lines auto contracts, we have a provision that says we will replace with OEM certified parts if it's within 2 to 3 years of it being a new vehicle. And so that's one area where, in so doing of bringing in new technology and finding a faster or more efficient way to leverage it, you may disrupt other areas of the business that are touching contracts and partnerships and policy contract language. And so it's not just always about the shiny object at the front end of the value chain. It's about how we modernize the process and the relationships and all of the things that go along with that.
These are too many questions that people are posting. I think I'll have to delete this app and I have limited time, but this audience has been lovely. RevTech Labs, this event has to give something back to the audience at the end. So I want to ask two things from you. So takeaways, can you summarize this discussion, give a takeaway for the audience? And can you recommend where they could, what are your go-to places wherein you are learning more about how insurance is changing? You can recommend an influencer. Don't recommend me, recommend an influencer that you follow. Sanjay, I'll start with you.
So I'm going to make it quick. I think we can talk about for hours about this. So there are a few things. One thing I want you guys to take away from this one is the process of change today is you have seen slowest in your lifetime. Whether it's a tech coming in, consumer behavior, demographic change. So I think you need to start watching that as a insurance industry, right? Keep the customer at the center of all things you do. In the past, it used to be, okay, what I want to sell it. Now, go back and look at the customer. Put the customer at the center. And the third, I would say, keep the data. Data is the power for future. That's where all the magic gonna happen, regardless of whether you're using generative AI or whether you're using the data science or whatever behind the scene things that you wanted to do the analytics on. And from my perspective, where I get the most information from is the Insurance General and the daily feed from Wall Street Journal, from the insurance area, and I get those on a daily basis. So I read about 15 minutes every day. That's how I keep myself up to speed.
And you follow Elon Musk on Twitter too. Charlotte.
Okay, I'll piggyback on Sanjay's comment. So hopefully a key takeaway for the audience here is that the customer experience is critical and you need to stay in touch with what their needs are and even start to anticipate their needs. And I will say, in partnering with insurance carriers, know that the customer experience can be no better than the employee experience. So even if we agree and have a strategy for how we want to leverage disruptive technology, ultimately it's our employees that are going to be the ones that have to interact with it. And so it's equally important not just to think about how the end user interacts with it or engages with it or how it disrupts their day-to-day, but also the internal employee. Because I can tell you, when I go to roll something out with our claims operations, our frontline customer service representatives, they don't have the same line of sight that we all have. They're not out attending conferences and thinking about the future of their business. They're thinking about the next call that is already waiting on the line for them and how they serve their current call with excellence. And so anything you can do to help tailor your pitch or your value proposition to also apply to how does this make a single employee's day-to-day job easier, their life better, or even more enjoyable. It's about that ease, efficiency, process flow, et cetera. So just be mindful of kind of the dual side of that market there, both the customer needs and the employee needs, or the one that's moving it forward internally. And then as far as what I use to keep up on the industry, I'll give two. CB Insights is a great newsletter. The CEO sends out a daily recap. He's comical and also informative, so I love that one, would highly recommend that newsletter. And then for general inspiration, I always go to a podcast called How I Built This, and it profiles entrepreneurs and just interviews them on how they came up with great ideas like Airbnb, and those are the stories that keep me inspired. And you know, you hear the struggles and the triumphs, and it's just a wonderful way to know that others have trouble innovating and bringing new technology to market, but also gives you a dose of inspiration and hope for the future.
Amazing, amazing. You both have been lovely and insightful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to the audience. The next session is Silver Tsunami, should be in minutes, or maybe in hours. It doesn't show me the time. Thank you so much. Great round of applause for everybody. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for staying.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pradeep.